Draft Pod, baby. That's right. Giving you the full recap on the combine. All sorts of worst things we've seen online this week. Outrageous takes. Maybe a new wide receiver one. We're getting into all of it now. DNVR Draft Pod. We are doing it live from the Toyota Lounge in downtown Denver. Of course, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. I'm joined by my guy, Henry Chisholm, Big Hank, fully locked in on the offseason. Big congrats to our dear friend and former colleague, Todd Davis.
Yes.
Yeah, I never got his true thoughts on this linebacker class.
No, I think they're going to have him studying pretty hard now, though.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
He used to be a draftnik with us. Now he gets to be it with Sean Payton.
Yep.
We hope to have taught him well.
We hope. I mean, I like to think that a bunch of my ideas are now
Seeped
in.
in.
You know?
Seeped in.
Yeah,
We've infiltrated the building.
Some of those comparisons, a way to see some of these guys.
Intellectual infiltration. You
Yeah.
love that.
Also, I haven't said this. I said on the Broncos pod and on the draft pod. Last week on the draft pod, we talked about some of those sprinkles for fastest 40 times. Matthew Golden, who I think I might have been the only one who took him, but he was one of those names he threw out there. And I made quite a bit of money on the 48-1 bet on Matthew Golden to have the best 40 time.
Yeah, well done by you.
I'm hoping somebody out there.
Well done by Bet365 for bringing it. Ty Felton, pretty close for being plus 25. No, 12,500. And Brashard Smith also quite close.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, very close. Very close.
Let's get into those wide receivers and running backs. I think the only quarterback take I have is that Will Howard's getting roasted. Just remember, Bo Nix wasn't the best thrower at the combine. It's a different setting, and I can see why the top guys kind of decided not to do it, but I'm not reading too much into it. Lots of other positions where it's important. So we're going to try our best to go position by position.
Yep.
We left Jake Schwanitz on vacation so we could get through this quicker. He had some outrageous Tez Johnson takes.
He did. He did. But I mean, some would say they aren't too outrageous. You know, I'm more on your side that I think they're crazy. There is a big discussion going on. And Tez Johnson may be the most controversial prospect in this draft. He's right up there. He's top 10 at least.
Yeah. That'd be a fun top 10 to put it together.
With his Bronco, actually.
Most divisive prospects.
I mean, you could
Sounds
even
like Shadur's starting to enter that.
Even like Travis Hunter.
Travis's role
given
is
like
up there.
Exactly.
Shamar Stewart feels like it.
Stewart. Ashton Genty, as we found out, not as popular among the DMVR Buffs crew as you might have thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Running backs, wide receivers. We should probably start with Bashal Tutin, Virginia Tech. Huge winner.
Yes.
Ran a blazing fast 40-yard time. Just an outstanding performance all around. Couple weeks ago, we did a mock roundup where he was in Chris Terrapasso's CBS mock draft round one to the Chargers. And you kind of thought that was crazy. And do you feel it's as crazy now? How many running backs in the top 25 after that insane combine showing?
That is
if
tough.
there was a position you were to say biggest winners of the combine,
That's probably
I
it.
would say it's the running back
And
position.
with the receivers probably right there too. I mean, both those groups like ridiculously fast times. I mean, this is the first time ever that there have been 10 receivers run 4.4 flat or better. There were 13 of them. Like, it was a pretty ridiculous showing from them as well. But I think running backs is the number one. Tootin, definitely helped himself. I would say Omarion Hampton, though, like that's a guy who, at this point, if we're just talking top 25, he is a top 25 pick. I think he's probably gone before the Broncos pick, but he and Genty certainly gone in the top 25. And I'm curious who the third would be.
There were all the bigger running backs. Well, Caleb Johnson, at least.
Yeah.
Ollie Gordon ran like bigger running backs the high 4.5s, low 4.6s.
Yep. And that was a little bit disappointing.
It was, but it really makes Omarion Hampton at 220 plus pounds, Quinshon Judkins at 220 plus pounds, running a 4.4 really stand out.
Yep.
Fran Duffy also had Judkins dropping to the third to the Broncos in our mock that we published on the site today. That's very interesting. A lot of the top guys didn't run for the running backs. That's kind of my takeaway, though, on this one. Trevion Henderson, I thought, ran well, and Rocket Sanders, my guy, was another big back who ran a 4.4. Start putting some respect on his name because Raheem Sanders has been a standout since early in his career, and I thought he had one of the more underrated spectacular combines of anyone this week.
I thought Trevion Henderson at 4.43 and Quinshon Judkins at 4.48 was interesting. Because I thought on tape, at least, especially the selling point as a Broncos running back, is like that Jahmyr Gibbs, like he can get away. 0.05 of a second separating those two. And you had talked about it a little bit when I said, like, Trevion Henderson, I really like him because of the burst. Quinshon Judkins not that far behind him.
100%. And it was a great reminder of go back to the Ole Miss tape and watch Quinshon Judkins do more of that Trevion Henderson type stuff before he went to Ohio State and kind of became more of the north and south bruising running back, while Henderson was more of the Alvin Kamara. And then you have a different kind of appreciation for Judkins' game. Look, to me, he was already ranked higher than Caleb Johnson. Raheem Sanders was as well. I feel even more justified in those rankings now.
Yeah, and Caleb Johnson, that 4.57, it breaks my heart a little bit. And it's not that it should be like a huge surprise, but you watch him hit those holes and just start flying. I thought there was a chance he was in those 4.4s. Like, I thought there was a chance that he had that kind of speed, especially being built the way he's built. 4.57, it means that I'm no longer thinking trade up in the second round to go get him.
Yep, and it's a 4.57 with a 1.62 10-yard split. Quite slow.
Yep.
Now, clocked at peak speed at 22 miles per hour, that actually is pretty good and comparable to other guys who ran quite fast. Kyle Monongai from Rutgers, who I've kind of compared to, I've described as a poor man's Ashton Genty, and I think I stole that from someone on Twitter. That's not a Dre Simone original. Underwhelmed me with a low 4.6 as well, but I think he might be tremendous value later. I also thought Damian Martinez, big back, who Jake loves, who we talked up last week at 217 pounds, running a 4.51 flat, is really pretty extraordinary.
And Jaden Blue, that 4.38. Were you disappointed?
No, it's fine, but like he's literally getting roasted by Xavier Worthy for talking about running a 4.1 or a 4.2 and then running a high 4.3. Like, yeah. Also, like, I don't know. Texas fans were really complaining about their running backs all season.
True.
So it seemed odd to me that then we had this week of hyping up Jaden Blue going into the combine. Like,
okay.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he's a good receiving back, but
exactly. Between the tackles, there's probably nothing there at the
He's
NFL
not
level.
cracking my top 20 running backs in this loaded class.
Do you think he fits better with the Broncos, though? Because, again, he's on that short list of guys who does get to go. He played quite a bit from the slot. And like, he did run the ball in between the tackles. It just felt like every time he hit a linebacker, it was like running into a brick wall.
If you come into this running back class and you only draft one and that running back is Jaden Blue, I'm probably a smidge disappointed.
That's fair. Definitely. Especially, yeah.
He's Jaleel with less patience and vision and more raw speed.
Yep.
Which, maybe you're saying, like, the raw speed's actually what's holding Jaleel back from being a home run hitter.
True.
And right? Like, you'd rather more home runs than fewer 10-yard gains if that's what you're sacrificing.
And get more established as a receiver coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep. But is he too much of a tell where it's like any DC, any green dot linebacker, as soon as blue comes in, they're like, okay, it's a pass play. It's a pass play. Watch for the screen.
absolutely. Similar to a Marvin Mims, for example, playing that
and-
same role. Is it really an upgrade in that?
And you got to think about that with a personnel standpoint. Like when a guy's mere presence on the field gives away run or pass, like you should think about that a little bit.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Wide receivers, Henry.
Yes.
I'd start by Torrey Horton, who I didn't expect to run and was just outstanding.
Yep.
I do not think he gets out of day 2 now. Of course, we, unlike an NFL front office, don't have a medical staff that makes that decision for us. But if you've recovered from your ACL so quickly that you're running in the low 4.4s, I'm not. I mean, again, I'm not a doctor, nor do I have a doctor's opinion available to me. But I'd say I'm pretty reassured by that.
That would be a good NFL Network if they're looking for some programming. Dr. Dre,
resource.
perfect.
No doubt.
Let you go check these guys out. Give your takes.
I mean, look, I think we've dabbled in potential sponsorships with people like that, so you never know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it was a
out.
great time. It was a 4.41 for him is awesome. Because how big is he? 6'2", pushing 200.
6'3", and I think he came in heavier than many expected. Because he was listed in the 180s, and I think he was close to 200.
196. 6'2 and a half, 196.
Yeah, right. When I expected him to weigh maybe closer to a Troy Franklin, who's rail thin, you know?
Yep.
So I think that's also a big win.
The only pushback I give on Locke for day 2 is just that, again, this is the fastest wide receiver class in the history of the combine, and by a wide margin. And so 4.41 is a great time. Ranked 14th at the combine, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So it finishes as in this year's class, that 66th percentile.
But when you're almost 6'3", you're almost 200 pounds, you've had All-American type production in your career, regardless of the quarterback, regardless of the offense. Shoot.
Yep.
I guess always the same Norvell offense because he literally came from Nevada with him. But still, that's a really impressive resume. With a Rams passing game that quietly, with Trey McBride and those other wide receivers, has actually been a pretty successful place to grab wideouts from.
True.
Matthew Golden's the other big standout for you, Hank. The 4.29 stands out. The 10-yard split is sub 1.5, which is incredible.
Yep.
Peaked at 23.5 miles per hour, which is also pretty amazing. He was a massive, massive winner, as was Thornton from Tennessee.
Yes. No, Matthew Golden, I mean, I was talking to our guy Andrew Farmer on Twitter about it a few months ago. Just saying, he's a little bit undersized. He has obviously the hands, the contested catch stuff, the catch and run ability. So many of those detail things that the Broncos are just kind of lacking, I think, and have lacked for a while, particularly the catch on the run. But the big question was, how much juice does he have? And the answer was a whole lot of juice. 4.29 juice. That top speed.
He's a juice bar.
He is a juice bar. He is a juice. Lucy, a little juice pouch in there.
Yo.
Yeah. I think Matthew Golden, to me, the height and weight too. 5'11", 191. I thought was pretty good for him, because he's another one where if you told me 4.29, I'd be like, wait, is he weighing in at 179?
Let's get into where he ranks for your wide receivers, where he ranks for mine on the other side of this here break. And, the weekend was a pain in the buns last week because the Nuggets disappointed me. Everyone was freaking out about the Celtics. I have a stupid Italian soccer team that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
And then I was really bummed by these arm measurements from the O-line class, which we're going to get into. Thank goodness I could choose chill with Coors Light. Just have a nice, fresh, cold Coors Light, silver bullet time, choose chill. Nothing as refreshing and delicious on a nice Sunday than a Coors Light. Mountains turn blue. It's a glorious thing. Of course, choose chill this winter and reach out for a Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado, and of course,
Matthew Golden, Colorado.
Yes, Matthew Golden, Colorado, indeed. And speaking of the money you won on Matthew Golden, we did that with our dear friends at Bet365 who had us covered. It was a glorious thing. They're starting to add more and more draft props. So we're going to use that as a guiding force here soon enough.
Oh, do we have player over-unders for picks yet?
No, I don't
those usually
believe
are like
so,
the
but
last
those
piece.
are the best.
You're close when those come out.
James Palmer last year allowed me to win a plus 6,000 bet on Michael Penix being drafted 8th overall. That was at Bet365.
Nobody
Glorious
had that
app. No one had that one, and no one has our code DNVR365 when you sign up, and you can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets, win, lose, or draw. So wait for those draft props. Wait for those futures. Place something on like tonight's Avs game against San Jose, Big Val to get a point, something like that.
Yeah.
Official partner of the Avalanche, by the way.
True.
And then, boom, 150 in bonus bets. Only place you can use our code. QR code right there. Link in the description. Do it up. Must be 21 plus. Physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you, someone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Golden, man.
Golden.
Yeah. Where would you put him in this wide receiver class?
He's way up there. So here's my starting point. Before, to me, it was Emeka Egbuka and Tedero McMillan. And obviously, like Travis Hunter in a tier of his own. Call him whatever you want. To me, I think it's easy to compare him to Matthew Golden. And we talked a little bit, and I think you pushed back maybe a little bit, but I think there are some similarities in terms of like the slot versatility, the Z-type receiver, catch and run ability. I think there are a lot of similarities in terms of what they bring to an offense, with some obvious differences, with Egbuka being just a little bit bigger. And that, I shouldn't say a little bit, a notable amount. I think it's came out as like 2 inches and 15 pounds, 10 pounds, something like that.
Right.
So you have that size advantage on Egbuka's side. Then obviously the speed on Golden's side. And that's where, to me, it's just kind of like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Just slightly different skill sets with some similarities, with Tedero McMillan being a totally different player, obviously. And I love him. I think I'd still have him in front of these next two. I think I'd lean Golden afterward, but I also just made a whole lot of money on Matthew Golden, so maybe I have a little bit of some rosy glasses on toward my guy.
Yeah, that Sark offense did a really good job getting Matthew Golden open. And he's a bit of a one-year wonder. Shoot, he might be a half-season wonder in some ways. That's what scares me when Egbuka, I've seen wonder. Since he was a true freshman, outgaining like Marvin Harrison Jr. in that receiving core, or JSN in that receiving core, and coming with the track record those Ohio State wide receivers have had as of late as well. And then, the size, the slot versatility, it's just such a clean, safe draft profile for a wide receiver. That he, to me, is a set and forget first round grade. And once I stack up those 20 first round grades, he's pretty high among those 20 guys. I've talked about how Egbuka's like 9th overall on my board. But I get it. And who doesn't want a Tyreek Hill comp, man?
Exactly. Tyreek
Hill comp. Make that Malik Neighbors comp. Make that Jamar Chase. You're like, wait, well, you just listed 3 very different receiver types. Yes, you're right. What makes those guys similar, though, and reminds me of Matthew Golden, is how competitive you are, the dog in you at the top of the route and finishing the route. Finishing a route. Yeah, the catch point.
Like, because it really is crazy how physical he is. He makes the catches over guys. He pushes through guys. And then
It's winning, man. It's wanting to win off the
Yes.
bat and winning to come down with the ball.
And that's where-
he has that. And that's a trait I bet on.
And I totally agree. And that's what we were talking about a month or so ago. Like, is the comp kind of like a Tyreek Hill if he winds up running a crazy 40? Because it is so much that the stylistic version and not just so much just like the pure speed, the run after the catch, the ability to break tackles. And it's like, well, if he runs the 40, then all of a sudden you have to have those conversations. And what 40 time does he give you? A 4.29, the exact same as Tyreek Hill.
I'm ready to put him ahead of LB3, who, crazy enough,
Yep,
did
me
not
too.
have a bad, he ran a 4.41.
Same as Torrey Horton. Like that's
At 206 pounds.
Exactly.
And over 6 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
how tall is Jamar Chase? Because he's more like 6'1", 215, 220, right?
Yeah, that sounds right, Hank. So LB3, I mean, I was hearing you guys on the Monday pod, and you kind of like, you and Zach kind of talked him down. I don't think he necessarily lost himself any money. He didn't underachieve for me. He just, everyone else kind of overachieved.
I agree. I definitely agree.
And Buko is probably smart to not run.
Jamar Chase, 6 foot 201.
Wow. So
There's-
actually, Luther Burden's bigger.
Those exactly. And so I don't have his 40 time in front of me. I almost think he didn't wind up running one. But again, that's that same kind of player. And Burden also a one-hit wonder, right? Or did he have 2 years before this year?
No, but here's what I'll say. Missouri's offense underwhelmed for sure. He had some big time moments this year, even if the stats aren't there.
Okay.
Like, he still made game breaking plays and game winning plays and highlight reel type stuff, even though the big time production over the course of the entire year wasn't there.
Yeah. I agree. And I don't dislike Burden. It's just that, like you said, some of these other guys just had those crazy combines. Matthew Golden, again, it's like he's 5 pounds lighter, an inch shorter than Jamar Chase, and ran a 4.29. And you see, again, it's that physicality, that dog.
Yep.
And Burden has some of that as well. It's a run after catch stuff. I think all these guys would add another element. It's almost in some ways like a little
Another
bit bigger,
dynamic
stronger
presence.
Marvin Mims type.
Yeah.
And you wonder if
And that
you all of a
slot
sudden work those two
versatility.
together. Exactly.
Look, you're not quite a joker, but it's similar to what you're looking for.
You're playing in the
a
same
joker,
parts of the field. Yes.
and can play in multiple parts of the field.
True.
Dante Thornton, absolutely insane at 6'5" to run a 4.3 flat. The Tennessee wide receiver. Tennessee, since they've got that coach, they just produce like absolute speed demons. Ty Felton from
Fun-
Maryland
real
quietly had a great day. Yeah.
Fun talking about Thornton. Daniel Jeremiah, one of the things he said is like, yep, in that offense, you just split them out as wide as you can. Like, you're getting as close to sideline as you can. Just run those posts over and over again.
Yeah.
It feels kind of one-dimensional in a way in terms of
Very
what he brings to the
one-dimensional.
table.
Yeah.
But that's a nice dimension to have, especially in an offense where you're working 5 receivers into the rotation. Like, if there's 15, 20 snaps a game where you'd really like to be able to say, hey, you got to double cover him because he's running by the cornerback, so there'd better be a safety back there.
Yep. 100%.
But again, if that's 15 to 20 snaps of just deep threat, expand things, what is that worth?
Well, and
it's
you're
not a
doing
first round pick, that's for sure.
you're doing it at 6'5",
Yep.
not 5'10", 155.
Yeah,
The conversation with Tez Johnson is interesting.
sure is.
I was saying I don't think this puts him in like definitely undraftable
Definitely,
territory,
yep.
but it's going to be really hard to slap a top 100 grade on the kid. There's no doubt about that, because he is such a niche profile. The weight, the fact that he's only a slot guy.
Yep.
He's got some return ability, but the best comp I can give is Tank Dell. And I would point out his peak speed was better than some guys who ran into 4.3s or 4.4s.
Yep.
His 3-cone is really impressive. But as Jake was pointing out in our private chat, Tank Dell's like gotten so beat up, you don't know how many more years he's going to give you.
Yep. And Tank Dell, another 10 pounds on Tez. You put a couple pounds on Tez probably. But what does that turn that 4.51 into? So I again, the numbers just... Usually the numbers tell like a pretty clear story. Where it's like, oh, this is a linear athlete. He's fast going straight ahead. Change direction, not really there. Or the opposite. Tez is interesting because the 4.51 40, especially in this class, not good at all.
Very bad.
But you get to the on-field work, and he hits the highest top speed of any receiver in the class. Top miles per hour of any of them. It's like, well, how do you put those two things together in your head? Really tough to do. Then you get to the 3-cone, like you said, best in the class. Not only best in the class, but the difference between him and number 2, same as the different distance between number 2 and number 9. The quickness, the shiftiness, you don't find that in every draft class. You know, that top speed, being able to bail out I don't know how you put all these pieces together. I think that the upside is obvious because we've seen the production. I mean, 2023, 16th in catches, 12th in yards, 16th in touchdowns. I mean, that's really, really solid production, especially playing behind Troy Franklin, who's also, I think he was 8th in receiving yards. Yeah, it's a Bo Nix offense. It was incredibly productive. Terrence Ferguson, a guy people like, he's in there picking up 600 yards as well.
Yeah.
So I would love to have him as a Bronco. I think that the upside, the skill set, there's a lot to like. I don't know where you justify it, though, because it is in the beginning of day 3. I don't think.
No.
But if he's still there, the Broncos are in a situation they have a 4th-round pick, 3 6th-round picks. That means you use a 6th-round pick on him. And if they do that, I'll say I like it.
Yeah.
It's tough, though.
And I also, like, is there a need for a slot? If you're trying to experiment with a joker tight end and a big slot, and then you still have Mims and Franklin who might be able to give you some stuff out of, like, with that niche profile, you start to really, it's hard to carve yourself out some snaps.
Yep. And I think I like it, although I will say the true slot is what I want, not like a speed slot. And turns out Tez with the speed is like kind of this interesting situation. But if you can run the little quick double move underneath and get open, I like it. And that's what Tez is best at. And so I think that he would be a good fit for that reason. Because again, like for all that Marvin has done, the route running still isn't really there, especially on this underneath stuff. And I think he can learn it, but he hasn't yet. And I think you could patch that gap with a 6th-round pick on Tez.
O-line class, rather than go line by line, I think the big takeaway is some really freakish athletes, pretty undersized class.
Yes.
Like the one guy you don't talk about, Kelvin Banks Jr., might come out as the biggest winner because he's 6'5", his arms aren't bad, and he has one of the best wingspans of the entire class. Josh Connerly Jr., no one talks about, but tested almost as well as Membao and Will Campbell and actually has appropriate size. Jared Wilson looks really good. And then there's like Gray Zabel, Campbell, who, great athletes, but historically undersized.
Yep.
And I don't know if they can stick a tackle. And I know we've made that exception with guys like Peter Skoronski, but I don't know, man. I don't know how you can just watch the Eagles win a Super Bowl and biggest offensive line in the NFL is such a selling point and just be like, cool. We can take a 6'4" offensive tackle. We can take an offensive tackle with 32-inch arms. Who cares?
Daniel Jeremiah made a good case for Armand Membao. What a fun name.
He's awesome.
He is. And again,
super young, phenomenal right tackle in the SEC.
Short arms. Ran through all the numbers, though.
Yeah, and he's one of the guys who wasn't so short arms at the Senior Bowl. So, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Short arms, though. Basically, Rashawn Slater across the board. When you go through bench press 40 times, the quickness, the short arms, the height is the exact same. Only difference, Membao 28 pounds heavier. And so if you look at like what Rashawn Slater was, again, some injury stuff there, but...
Well, no left tackle experience, which I think is a big one.
Also fair. You throw Membao in there and say, like, you get this, but just a little bit more size. I can get behind it. In a class of guys where it's like, I don't know who to get behind, I like him at 20 years old. I think he can be a really good player.
Fran mocked him 4th overall, so the buzz is real now. We'll get into more of all the other combine takeaways on the other side of this. Talking about O-line, nothing like a Toyota truck or SUV to get lost in the mountains with, like, a true Armand Membao of trucks and SUVs. The perfect Colorado car, the perfect family car, perfect car to just get lost and go out and explore. Toyota also currently offers more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker. It's pretty incredible. There are 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra, iForce, the Max hybrid truck, and, you know, Toyota SUVs take command of the road and the trail so you can explore and, get lost all over the Western Slopes. It's a beautiful, glorious time. I see the Toyota chats going off. You love to see that. They're a presenting studio sponsor. We love and appreciate them for that. Leave us a thumbs up. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, the official vehicle of DMVR. Let's go places. And a quick shout out to ourselves. Really some great stuff coming out on the website right now. Become a diehard member today. Get a free shirt and access to all our content. Discounts at the DMVR, discounts at DMVR events, discounts on DMVR merch, and access to all our content. And did I say the Die Hard Lounge?
I don't
our
think
exclusive Discord where you can talk draft. It's great stuff. Just had the mock draft come out. Henry's doing all sorts of off-season preps and lists. It's phenomenal stuff. We've got Zach boots on the ground, bringing you quotes from the combine. You name it. It is a great deal. And it's we as Denver sports fans have created this because we believe you need more specialized content for your teams. If you believe in that as well, if you want to support people who cover your teams day in, day out, who live and breathe this stuff, I would urge you to become a diehard today and support us. So thank you so much. We love our community. We love this town and this state. It means everything. So, O-line. And again, I think it's so crazy that the Senior Bowl, half these guys measured with bigger arms.
Yeah.
And because, like, the cutoff line's 34-inch arms, and, like, Membao had cleared that. Josh Connerly had cleared that. Now they're coming a half inch under that. So, I mean, does that half inch matter that much? So then you go look at the wingspans, and, like, for some it matters less. For guys like Will Campbell and Gray Zabel, they're, like, historically short 77-inch wingspans.
Yep. Narrow shoulders.
Yeah, man. I don't know.
Yep. It's not ideal.
It's not. And if you're running a power scheme, I don't know how you can justify that.
Yeah, I agree.
But as we always say, athleticism is an in relation to metric. It's not to be taken on its own. It's, well, if you're smaller, you better be more athletic to make up for that. Oh, gosh. And
mic drop.
Vice versa. Mic drop, indeed. So, yeah. Any other takeaways on the...
big guard, what's his name, from Georgia?
Tate Rutledge.
Yeah.
Beast.
Also,
Donovan Jackson tested outstanding. Yeah. I think he might get some tries at tackle. The former left guard for Ohio State that when they had an emergency converted to left guard, converted to left tackle, and was just outstanding. Also, Jared Wilson really stood out among the centers, and who knows, maybe a center upgrade for the Broncos. Not the craziest thought.
Maybe not.
Defense?
Yeah. Yes, defense. Where do we start? Safeties. Nick Emenwari. Okay, 6'3", 220 pounds.
We'll circle back to the tight ends, actually.
Oh, good call.
Yeah. But safeties first word.
6'3", 220 pounds. That's a big dude. 43-inch vertical. Do you know how many NBA players in the NBA combine had a 43-inch vertical? You listen to the podcast?
Yeah.
The answer is 0. Ridiculous.
stat.
Ridiculous. 4.3840. Ridiculous at 220 pounds. I wonder when's the last time somebody 220 pounds ran a sub 4.4? I would guess it's been a while.
It's pretty crazy.
149.
Alyssa, the mic like came off the stand and now it's bending all crazy.
We're drooping a bit. 149 10-yard split. Best of any player at any position of combine.
Sub 1.5 is flying.
This is an all-time combine performance. Especially like when you factor in like measurements and athleticism, again, like in relation to, ridiculous.
No, it's pretty insane. And I also see a lot of versatility in how he was used in the SEC. Honestly, when you watch the tape, I wish I'd see a little more pop sometimes.
Okay.
Even in the coverage areas.
Yeah. Like pop in terms of like hitting pop or just like first step pop?
Hitting
Explosive
pop, just closing in coverage, rushing the passer pop. It's just like checks off a lot of boxes. I think he's pretty trustworthy in coverage. And then after that, it's kind of like, eh.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of like, oh, they threw a screen and he just runs it down. Like there's a lot of that sort of stuff that I really like. I'm curious how he fits exactly with the Broncos, though. And this was a conversation that we had outside. But I think with Brandon Jones, you have this versatility where you can play him deep, you can play him up in the box, the man coverage is there, and it allows you to have flexibility in who you want as your other safety. Because I think you could justify a guy who's better off deep downfield, better off playing in the box. I think it's really nice to have somebody who can do both, though, because then you keep that versatility and you can show too high and then rotate down, and they can handle each other's responsibilities. Is Nick Emenwari a guy who you really do trust as like that deep safety? Or is he just straight up, you play him in the box and that's kind of it?
I trust him in two high, not so much single high.
Okay.
And
I think that's
also
probably
think,
right.
Like, what's the point of even having him if you're going to have him play in single high?
Fair. I think it's more just to have like a curveball, a change up, have something that you throw out there so that confuse a
I'm fine with
play
that
rookie
happening
quarterback
5 times a game.
Yep.
And he ran a 4.38. So like,
it's like dropping Vaughn in coverage.
Yeah.
You do it a few times just so the offense doesn't get complacent.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like these big safeties, I get so excited about it and then realize size at safety doesn't mean what it used to. And half the time, like the 190-pounder makes 90% of the tackles that the big guy makes anyway.
Well, and we've just been burnt by a lot of these guys, Hank. You were saying the same. You were telling me
hit on
this.
Kyle Hamilton. And even he was like lankier, but for the most part,
Kyle Hamilton. That is a great example.
But for the most part, it's even like Isaiah Simmons fits in that. If we're very similar levels.
Of course, 1,000%.
Is he a tweener? The tape would say he's not a tweener, and that's why I'm still in. But you just can't get too excited by the numbers, you know? We knew he was a good athlete. These numbers for safeties typically don't matter all that much.
Right. Think of Justin Simmons.
Yeah. The
Great
numbers
vertical,
were not great.
but
yeah.
like a pedestrian 4.5-ish.
Yep. Who else has there been? Those safeties up at the top.
I think Earl Thomas ran like a 4.4.
Yeah.
Ramsey, obviously he's played corner, ran a 4.4. Derwin James tested out of his mind. But it's that next tier, like the Jordan Poyers and guys like that.
That's a good example.
Malachi Starks test, meh, but then looks really good in the workouts. To me, he's not an elite single high safety, but he's a really good one. A guy you can trust as your last line of defense. I just don't think he's like a mismatch eraser either.
Okay.
So I think, again, Justin Simmons could be a very good safety, could be even best in the league levels, but he's not Earl Thomas, generational, alters the math of our secondary.
Yeah, I agree. And again, like I think when you look at Starks as a guy who, does he give you versatility in the back end? I think that he can give you some versatility. I think Brandon Jones is definitely the guy who you'd expect up in the box more, taking those one-on-ones. But I think there's enough there with Starks that you could give him some snaps.
Lots of real standouts in the secondary on the corner side of things.
Yep.
But, we're not really interested in corners. So Troy Amos did really well for Ole Miss.
Yep.
Maxwell Harrison stood out. I think those are guys who are borderline first rounders and were coming in, as is Darian Porter from Iowa State. The Iowa State kids killed it. They're 2 wide receivers. You got a big one and a small one. They both tested out of this world. And let's get into the tight ends. Terrence Ferguson.
Jahdae Barron, other corner.
Very good.
versatile.
He made himself a lot of money.
He did.
And maybe another of those safety candidates.
Yep.
Who you don't talk about as much as the safety, but is a true
Big
nickel guy.
yeah.
Who may be another like low-key consideration at 20, much like Inawari and Starks.
Again, it's not because you say we want Jaquan off the field or because we want PJ off the field, but having like a third guy for those 2 spots.
Yeah.
It just gives you a little bit of protection if one or the other doesn't play well. And then there's obviously packages where you get them all on the field.
Yep. 100%. Tight ends. Ferguson impresses, but does he impress relative to a weaker group of people who tested?
I think so.
Maybe not universally impressed.
Yep.
I thought Fedone, the Nebraska tight end, did well for himself as well. CJ Dipper from Bama had a nice showing. And the Harold Fannin takes were just obnoxious.
We're going to have to get into those.
Yeah.
Let's start with Terrence Ferguson, Colorado guy, so we like him.
Yeah.
I mentioned this again off air, but I've been a Terrence Ferguson fan for a while. There's a little bit of physicality
really
there.
Good tight end.
There's the red zone. There's the production. Somebody who I like going back and watching all the Bo Nix tape. Just good underneath safety blanket, get him the ball.
Yeah.
And so when people were saying 7th round, 6th round, it's like, oh, I love that. I'd take him before that.
Yeah.
Now you have the 40 time where it's, wait, is this guy a 2nd rounder, 3rd rounder? It's like, I'm not sure that I'm all the way up there.
I always saw him as a top 100 type guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've fringed top 100.
I've also been used to classes where Terrence Ferguson was literally the best tight end prospect in the class.
True.
And he's being elevated where it's like Terrence Ferguson, late first, like Max Williams.
Yep. Yeah. Lexi's neighbor growing up.
No shade. Just saying, like that was a weak tight end class.
Exactly.
And because he's the best of a weak tight end class, he's being elevated. Yeah.
Yeah, but you also have classes where the 4.63, like you said, doesn't shine the way it necessarily does in this class.
It's a great time for that size, for sure.
And for him in particular. I didn't think he had that in him.
Yeah, you see some run after the catch stuff,
You
for
do.
sure. I don't know why Gunnar Helm, the other Colorado tight end, would have ran if he was dealing with that injury. Like, sure, it shows your toughness, but that hurts you way more than it could have ever helped you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how he missed that.
Agreed.
And then Harold Fannin, look,
Fannin.
a low 4.71, I think that's fine, especially when your peak speed is 21 miles per hour, 21.3 to be exact. And that's really not that far off guys like Ferguson who won 21.8. Like 21.3 versus 21.8. Is that really that big a deal? Joshua Simon, who ran a 4.65, he ran 21.6. And then Fannin puts all those guys to shame with a 6.973 cone at 241 pounds. Pretty good vertical jump, too. And yeah, I don't know. Like, Fannin's appeal to me was never the raw straight line speed. It's the really impressive change of direction combined with like really great contact balance after the catch and being able to run and like change direction and be hard to tackle and being really competitive at the catch point.
Yeah. I mean, broke more tackles than any player in college football after the catch this year. Not just tight ends, but any receiver, any running back after the catch.
So maybe instead of having to use pick 51, you can get them in the 3rd or the early 4th. Cool by me.
Yep.
Doesn't change my opinion.
It's like we all love like Tyler Warren out there kicking ass, taking guys out. 18 broken tackles compared to 33 for Fannin. And it's a different conference, some of that sort of stuff, but there is something there. The weight too, coming at 241, we were thinking it's like more of 230. That extra 10 pounds,
I agree.
You know, it makes it feel a little bit less gimmicky and a little bit more trustworthy to see like, okay, he is this kind of athlete. And you know, Todd, when we were talking, one of the things he said, because I asked him, like, what is the identity of this offense? Because it's still something that's a little bit up in the air. What is it? And he brought up, is it the screen game? And it almost is, because you run a bunch of those, or almost like it could be if you had a tight end who kind of pieces that all together. Obviously, that's where he excels. I'm a big Fannin guy. I think there's a lot of people who don't like him because there's some clips at the combine where he looks clunky, or sorry, at the Senior Bowl where he looks clunky. The times aren't always the best. We thought he was a little bit under, but I think we aren't necessarily finding that any of those one things mean he can't play. It's just so that he is a unique athlete in terms of like this combination of tools is very unique. Right. And that doesn't mean that because he doesn't have this aspect, he's bad. I think that there's a lot there.
Also, the take I was seeing, everyone pair it online was like, oh no, testing and athleticism, usually an indicator for tight end success. And it's like, okay, Sam Laporta, Gronkowski had good RAS scores. There's a couple others on those lists.
Size factors into those.
You
those
know who we don't have metrics for? Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham, Shannon Sharp. So don't come telling me that, oh, that's a real indicator because Sam Laporta has a good RAS score, because Tim Ream had a good RAS score, because David Njoku and Evan Ingram had good RAS scores. Get out of here, man. You look at the top 20 RAS guys, 4 are actually really good.
Yep. That's the exactly. And again,
come on,
size factors into those as well. So it's like
100%.
Gronk measuring it at 6'6" and 2'6", like that's going to help the RAS score
it's
quite a bit.
Relative athletic.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. And I think my comp for Fannin is still Jonnu Smith. And, you know, the testing wasn't quite as good as Jonnu's. But 6'3", 241, 32-inch arms, 6'3", 248, 32-inch. Like this, that's kind of what you're looking at. And you're hoping that that better contact balance, like that ball carrier ability that we've seen from him, makes up for some of the athletic testing that isn't like mind-blowing good. Yeah. I think, again, like if the Broncos had signed Jonnu Smith last year, I think he really would have helped. And if this is a little bit obviously younger now, but Jonnu Smith, who has a little bit more run after the catch, there's a lot of things that you can do with him.
For sure. The other thing is like, oh, you know, everyone on draft Twitter is trying to be an analytics guru. You know what's a great analytical measure is the stats, the actual production on field.
Yeah.
And in that, Harold Fannin is unrivaled. So go tell me what kind of indicator that is of pro success.
Yes. By the way,
it's honestly intellectually dishonest, some of these takes. It's really, really stupid.
I've always said I appreciate Dre's intellectual honesty.
Thanks, man.
Yes.
I appreciate your intellectual honesty.
Well, thank you. Look at us.
Front 7. We only have front 7s left.
Okay. We got time. Okay.
Edges. Henry, 6'5", 245. He runs a 4.47. James Pierce Jr., I would be so damn tempted. So damn tempted. I don't know that this team needs another 245-pound edge rusher. Truth is, I know they don't. But boy, would I be tempted.
Well,
remember last offseason where 2 offseasons ago, D'Amico Ryans is the hot coaching name, and everyone's like, well, the Niners, they had 4 great edge rushers in their rotation. Should everyone do that? We won a Super Bowl that way.
We did a lot, and we aren't the only ones who did.
Yeah.
Like the Eagles, they got a lot of edge rushers. And I think if Nick Bonito was your pick in the first round here, would you be happy with that in a few years?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I think, again, those speed rushers, there's a lot of value there. That's a skill set that's really, really hard to find.
I just love how he drops, too. Like, it's not just the speed. All the stuff he does is really appealing. Honestly, you just give him a little more pass rush moves in the arsenal, and he could be a superstar.
I totally agree. And I think it comes back to sometimes you got to see the bigger picture. I know it feels like, how could you go into the season without using that pick on a skill position player? But sometimes you got to look at what pick is going to make us happiest 4 years from now. You know, and 4 years from now, I think there's a really good chance that if you get James Pierce Jr. at 20, you're saying, wow, what was this guy doing at 20? That's one of the better edge rushers in the league. You pair him with Nick Bonito, you have Cooper. Like, all of a sudden, that rotation makes a lot of sense. 'Cause, like, I really like Jonah Ellis. I think right now, Jonah Ellis probably is your pass rusher across from Nick Bonito on third downs. There's room for growth there. And James Pierce Jr. might be ready to provide some of that growth pretty quickly on top of like all the traits that we see what he could be in the future. So I am very much
Peyton and Peyton also, I think, are like, you can't go wrong with having more pass rushers.
You really can't.
Shamar Stewart maybe makes more sense in that JFM role. He also had like Tavon Walker like showing he is a freak show.
Yep.
The Texas A&M pass rusher who ran what, a 4.59?
Believe that is correct.
That's fine. Don't get caught up in the details.
Very good.
Very good.
Landon Jackson, 6'6", 264 with a 40 and a half
brag
inch
about
vertical.
your guy, yeah.
He's a beast. I mean, you just don't see guys that big, that explosive. And when you talk about how, at the end of the day, this is football, and if you show up to the Super Bowl with a really, really big, strong, fast team, guess what? You won the Super Bowl. That's what the Eagles did. I think Landon Jackson, that's just a skill set that you don't find very often. And I don't know where exactly he goes now.
And another big edge.
Yeah.
Who fits the JFM role, Hank?
He does. Bump him inside.
Like, you know, that's the thing. Could you upgrade on Coop?
The answer is yes. Now, is it a good use of assets?
I'm saying.
That's the other conversation. You remind me, though, tight end real quick.
Please.
Colson Loveland didn't run. 6'6", 248, 10-inch hands, 33-inch arms.
Big.
That is
Big boy.
That is a game changer in my mind.
Big boy.
Big boy. Because, again, it was
The way he moves on tape and that's his size, sign me up.
240.
Sign me up.
248 before was like, I bet in a couple years you could get him to 248 and then maybe add some old man weight at some point in his career. Now you're looking at as like 248. Is year 3, is he playing at 256, 257? Oh boy. If he still moves like that, then there's something really special going on.
Yeah, he's huge, brother.
He is huge.
He's huge.
And he moves well and he catches the football.
He might be gone by 20.
I think you're 2 running backs, 2 tight ends off the board at 20.
He might be gone.
Yep.
Defensive tackles. Give it to me.
Ty Robinson. With the best 40 time.
Freak show. Did not see that coming.
Yep.
Freak show. Insane showing by him. Darius Alexander keeps really standing out for sure. And I'm sorry, I'm struggling. Zach Biggers from Georgia Tech.
Yes. Zeke.
Really
Right?
was great.
could be
CJ
wrong.
West had a great time as well, the Indiana defensive tackle. Let's get into backers. Giad Campbell, who I do not love.
Tweener.
No, he lacks meat and potato-ness as an off-ball linebacker.
Okay.
I obviously want more of a cover sideline to sideline guy,
Who
but
doesn't?
I do like someone who can come up the middle. And Giad doesn't have that. So that's where it's concerning, but he's got some pass rush ability and he ran a 4.52, 6'2", 235. Yeah, I worry like he's a great third down backer. What do I do on first and second down?
Yeah. And I think he's a great athlete at a position where maybe athleticism isn't what you should be going after. You know, you look at linebackers and a lot of them are the, like,
In the modern NFL.
you still, okay. I think there are a lot of guys who you wind up looking at like the smarter player, and guess what? Some of the athletic stuff. Nick Bolton kind of being an
That's a good
example of that.
observation.
Nick Bolton, 40-time pure speed, wasn't necessarily seen as like the greatest sideline to sideline, but we talked about him a lot because he's a smart guy, knows his role, can plug up whatever his responsibility is.
But he's developed with that.
He has.
Like, first and foremost, he was a raw athlete that was a little undersized.
But I think there are other
And maybe
positions
that's
where,
Jared Campbell.
like cornerback, sure, give me the athlete. Receiver, give me the athlete. Linebacker, sometimes it's a little bit deeper than, five-star recruit, IMG Academy, like checks all these boxes, 3-year player, comes out early. If he hits, he's really going to hit. Roquan hit, that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I think the bust rate on these linebackers who you take because of the traits might be a little bit higher than other positions.
Yeah,
Can you move him to the edge, though, if it doesn't work?
But then he's 235, 6'2".
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe not.
With 32-inch arms. Like, it's not the greatest profile.
It isn't. Yeah, because even like a Drew Sanders had like the size. It's like the size and the length. We say like, oh, he could hold up on the edge.
Danny Studsman ran a 4.52, 34-inch vertical. The Oklahoma linebacker, he really showed up. I was quite impressed by his showing. Carson Swearinger, who everyone loves as a cover backer, only did vertical. He did well. Mondon from Georgia, I thought, showed well. So you have some good, probably a more athletic linebacker class than we came in expecting. And I think left me encouraged that you might find some good value on day 3 still with this group.
Yeah. It is a group that's in a weird position.
Yeah.
Because like right now on the roster, you got Singleton, Drew Sanders, Lavelle Bailey. So if you sign a guy, Lavelle Bailey is your number 4, which, again, I like him. I think he could earn that spot, but it's not necessarily a job I'm just handing him after a year on the practice squad. So adding somebody who could compete might make a lot of sense. Late round linebacker might make a lot of sense, unless you bring like a Sternad back.
Francisco Mayuaga is a guy to watch from Miami. He really had a great showing. As did Demetrius Knight, another guy at linebacker who really played well, and Nick Martin kind of impressed too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, I think there's a little more talent than we maybe gave credit for. Lots of people watching those UCLA linebackers because Schweringer came up after Declaration Day. Olafemi Odejo came up after the Senior Bowl. And now their other backer, Kane Medrano, ran a 4.46. So everyone's going back to watch those UCLA linebackers. I can tell you that much. Alyssa, are we able to go a smidge extra, answer some questions and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll do the OT shout out in just a second, but let's get into some of these questions, starting with a super chat from Aiden Garcia, who asked, what does trading back in the draft look like? Well, Aiden, I think that's the perfect scenario for this class. Yep. I think the sweet spot is having as many picks as possible in that 20 to 60 range.
I'd even push it down a bit. I'd almost say like 90. You're pushing it there, but I think there's still good value there.
That's fair.
And I say that almost thinking like you've got 121 in the 4th round. There's a way to like trade down, pick up assets, and move that 121 up a bit. Then that's where you could really see some great talent.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's adding one more pick in that range.
Yep.
So you're looking at lesser candidates than who you are dreaming on to drop to you at 20, right? So maybe you give up on the Ashton Genty, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland dream, but you might be okay with Omarion Hampton dropping into your lap in the early 30s.
Yep.
Or Judkins, or Travion Henderson. Totally. Or taking that next tier of tight end, but you take that with this extra pick that now you don't need to use your first pick or the pick at 50. You have an extra pick in that 60 range to use.
Yep.
And that's where you get your tight end. 50, it's the same candidates you're thinking of now. that first pick becomes maybe an Emeka Egbuka.
Totally.
Maybe a Matthew Golden.
Yeah.
Maybe one of these defensive front guys.
Yep.
Maybe a stud linebacker.
Or, I mean, because you have that extra pick, like you said, you're just not so pigeonholed into, we've got these 3 picks in the top 100, running back and tight end are 2 of them. It's like, and if you don't sign a running back, you could even justify another one, I would say. But if you have that freedom, then you can get weird with it. Like, it's a lot easier to justify an edge rusher, justify a cornerback, justify a developmental lineman, even somebody who you could take over long run.
If you're watching us on Roku TV or one of our OTT platforms, come to our website and join us as we continue the conversation. Sorry not to cue that earlier, unless I appreciate it. Yeah, so I think it's a scenario where, look, you're probably already at the 20th pick, weren't going to get your top 2 tight ends or your RB1, and you're still going to be able to plausibly get your RB2 in that range. And you still might be able to be in range for your tight end 3. And you still are going to have lots of options on the defensive front 7, on the safety core, and those kinds of guys.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think trading down, it's either Genty, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, or kind of trade down is the right move, I think. But at the same time, Sean Payton rarely trades down.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a time to trade up and there's a time to trade down.
I think this is absolutely a time to trade down. Or
I would agree.
Also trade up
but
for Genty.
Maybe they like those 3 guys so much that you trade up for them.
And that's probably more likely, knowing how they've operated in the past.
This is Mike Trout, who sends us a $5 super chat. Thank you, Mike Trout.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate you. Jacob Dobbs, first round, lock it in. Solves linebacker for a decade. It's a deep running back class and signed Cooper. BSN diehard for life. We appreciate you, Mike Trout. Jacob Dobbs, a guy he has been DMing me about. I'm struggling to find JMU tape, but we're going to get to it soon enough. A standout linebacker for JMU. Worth checking out, for sure.
Yep.
Worth checking out. I think linebacker is going to be very interesting. I know Jose from the Toyota chat's big on the linebackers. As we said, some really nice standouts from this combine showing. Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon looked pretty good too. Cody Simon's a guy who I believe didn't test but was outstanding in the playoffs for Ohio State. Chris Paul Jr. is someone we haven't talked about necessarily, and I think you could not go wrong adding more depth on the front 7 as well. So I think that has to be part of your consideration, and like trading down is just adding more. So how I rank it is, if you have a top 100 grade for me, Texans got Kirk.
Yes.
Crazy. I missed that.
During the show.
Wow. If you get a top 100 grade, it means by the end of your rookie contract, within your 4 first years in the NFL, I'm projecting you will be a starter at your position. And being able to get a starter level under a rookie deal obviously is a huge win. So really the best metric for having success in a draft for me when I evaluate it post-draft is how many top 100 guys did you get. Trading down allows you to maybe add another top 100 guy. And having one more cost-controlled starter in 4 years could mean everything.
Totally.
As you're starting to have Bo Nix on the books potentially, and Nick Benito and Zach Allen's contracts start to really kick in. Hopefully Mims got a big extension, or Troy Franklin, you're starting to think of signing him to a big extension because those guys have really overachieved in the rookie deals, So yeah, and I just think of that Bills matchup. Is this linebacker, is this front 7 guy going to help me if they were playing in Buffalo in the wild card round? Or would they have just been another guy who kind of fell flat on their face?
Yep.
Or is getting blocked as they're facing the wrong side of the field?
There's a little too much of that. Also, just pulled up the trade value chart for fun. So if the Broncos traded pick 20 and that 4th round pick 121, the equivalent value, obviously this wouldn't work, is you could get 59, 60, and 61. Which is a little bit low, but maybe you get 59. Yeah, 59 up a bit, that last one down a bit. But there's kind of what the value would look like.
You got to find someone who has multiple picks in that 30 to 40 range.
So 39 and 41 belong to Chicago.
Yes.
So those two combined, that would be worth 1,000. So the Broncos would have to trade 20. Oh, actually 20 and 85 for 39 and 41 would come out about even.
Yeah, I'd move down to 39. And then maybe you're more adding the 72nd pick.
Okay.
And like a future second or something.
Yeah.
And then you have 39, 51, 72, and 85.
Yeah.
And 39, yeah, you have an RB2 candidate. You're going to have good wide receiver options. You're going to have some really nice front seven options. And O-line options, which again, I think an upgrade at center, a tackle of the future, an upgrade at left guard shouldn't be off the table. I think those would all be worth considering.
Yep.
So, yeah, lots to figure out. I'm excited for free agency coloring our perspective and what the Broncos will go after by the time we join you next week.
Craziest take of the week real quick?
Please.
This first round mock guy.
I did hit my Harold Fannin one.
Oh, okay. First round mock guy on Twitter says he's a former NFL scout.
Sure.
I don't think he's joking. But what he did, real genius, he took tape of Shedeur Sanders running 40 yards on the football field.
Yeah.
Yeah. And said he's not running his 40. So I got him 5.37 seconds to run 40 yards. It's got to be a bit, but I don't believe it is. Because obviously that's not how that works.
I mean, you can see he's not running full speed in the clip.
Oh, no, he's not. And he's also kind of running, and he's wearing pads. That's not how 40-yard dashes work.
Yeah, we call that idiot analytics. And yeah, it's like, it's like you only loosely, you don't even understand quite the concept, but you know numbers are involved.
Yes.
So you try to make numbers work for your idiotic brain, and then it comes out in analysis like that.
Yep.
Also, like 40 time for a quarterback, why do we care?
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning, same 40 time.
Right.
Michael Penix, crazy fast. He'll never use it. Never has so far, at least.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. RG3's 40 time. I guess I'd be interested in that.
Oh, he like broke some records.
I believe.
But like Lamar didn't run.
And his knee.
Milrose telling teams he'd run a 4.3.
Oh, I tell teams I've run a 4.3. Doesn't mean I can.
Hey, teams, if I ran 4.1 flat, my guy. Yeah. So maybe in the 10-yard split at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, I pitched this to Zach or Todd, but we should all run the combine and like run a 40-yard dash. But before we do it, we have to guess our time. Whoever gets closest to their time wins.
You guys would be destroyed. Okay. That was a fun overtime. Thank you all for tuning in. Be back next week. Lots to get into. 'Tis the season, baby. Happy draft season to you all. Until next time. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.